Welcome into Sportsmemo's Betting Podcast for August 9th. We're doing college football conference previews, Mountain West Division on today's podcast with Robbie Veno on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports. Robbie, welcome into the podcast. How are you?
I am great today, Drew. Happy Friday to you. As we, on the East Coast at least, hit the, late afternoon here on a Friday.
Yeah, we're talking on Friday. Feliz Viernes to you, Robbie. Happy Friday to everyone out there. We're talking some Mountain West football. One of my favorite conferences in really all the world. I mean, it's one of my favorite sports and the favorite conferences. It's late night action for people on the East Coast. And Robbie, I know you're a late night owl like me, so hopefully we can get some betting tidbits here to either make some season win total bets or, heck, in the early start of the season, what to look for, what to bet on. Let's start off at the top of the division here. Fresno State, the Bulldogs, Jeff Tedford's third year here, 14th year overall as a head coach. Of course, he had some time there with the Cal Bears. Also, I believe, a CFL stint as well. Looking at Fresno State's schedule, they start off with the USC Trojans week 1, August 31st. Then they head to Big Ten opponent and play Minnesota at home, actually, before a couple bye weeks and starting their Mountain West slate. 12-2 last year, 8-1 in conference, Robbie. 10-4 against the number. Very good moneymaker here in the Bulldogs. 4-10, big under trender for last year. What are you thinking for the Fresno State Bulldogs in 2019, Robbie?
Yeah, it would seem pretty difficult to repeat a 10-4 ATS mark, right? That's not. They don't come every year. Those things don't grow on trees. And basically, when you run off a season the way Fresno State did, Drew, you get recognized by the odds makers. Power ratings go up. Lines become even more, in a favorites role at least, they become heavier and more difficult to cover. I think in the case of Fresno State, we may not see that because I believe they're going to be downgraded a little bit by the betting public this year, simply because they lost some talent off of last year's squad. And I don't feel like Fresno State is one of those teams where people view them as a squad that reloads. Obviously, Mountain West teams, generally speaking, don't reload unless you're Boise State. But the Fresno State Bulldogs, Drew, as we head into August camp here, and we're about 4 or 5 days in for most of the teams, maybe even 6 in some instances, Fresno might be a pleasant surprise. Defensively, I think, was the biggest concern coming in. If you just look at numbers on paper, returning starters, who did we lose, that type of thing, you would think Fresno State's going to sink a little bit on the defensive end. But you know what? As we sit here, like I say, second week of August, it looks like Fresno State, and the belief of that team is, from everything I read, that they could be every bit as good as they were last year. And I don't know if I believe they could be every bit as good, but if they're close to as good, they're going to be a handful for that Mountain West Conference one more time. And if the appropriate adjustments aren't made line-wise, maybe we can capitalize on Fresno State again. We're going to find out real quick. You talked about the schedule somewhat. USC and their new air raid offense right out of the chute in the Coliseum. That's going to be a difficult one for Fresno State, so we'll get a pretty good gauge on them August the 31st. Then they come right back and play Minnesota, so nothing cheap about the early schedule, Drew. We may have a real good picture of them immediately. The quarterback situation, of course, when you lose McMarion, who did everything for them last year. I believe the touchdown to interception number was crazy last year, something like 25-3 in that vicinity. And the replacement here, Jorge Reyna, I think there was some question about him. But again, reading through their first 5 practices here in the summer camp, all of a sudden, offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb in his first season said he could be scary good. So obviously you're only going against your own team, but that being said, most times the team defense knows the offensive plays better than anybody. So when you're throwing it around as well as Reyna is this camp, could be a situation where Fresno State has just gotten into Jeff Tedford's system now, and it's just going to activate itself each season. We'll see. I don't have a firm read on this squad one way or the other. I think we will have a firm read once we see that USC game and then the Minnesota game. But early indications to me, Drew, are that they might be somewhat undervalued to start the season.
Yeah, Robbie, it's interesting. You know, they obviously had a great year last year winning the division, but I just see with McMarion gone, I don't see how they repeat that. He was good, man. Just watching him play, did he make an NFL roster? Is he in a training camp? Do you know?
You know what? I haven't seen his name, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, not that matters terribly much. It was just I think he was pretty good, kind of a fringe possible NFL quarterback. And just to, you throw out this guy Reyna, who really I'm just reading on him. I guess he did attempt a couple passes, but a JC guy, that junior college quarterback coming in, I find it tough to bet on teams where the quarterback position is unknown. You're trying to replace a guy that was really good, and then thinking you're going to have the same production. I just don't buy into that. And seeing on FanDuel, do want to give credit to FanDuel. They did put out season win totals on all college football teams. So if you're in the state of New Jersey, possibly a couple other states now, and you have access to that account, I definitely recommend it. And seeing an 8-win total here for Fresno State on FanDuel, Robbie, just looking at their schedule going down, the first two are going to be tough, Pac-12 opponent, Big Ten opponent. But throughout the Mountain West, I can't see them having success. They do have to go to Hawaii. They have Utah State that should be pretty good, at San Diego State. That's going to be likely for the division championship here. Nevada as well. Do you if you had to make a bet, would you lean over or under on the season win total of 8?
That number could be right on the money, Drew. Fresno State, you just mentioned it, the crossover games where they play teams from the mountainside, they aren't that taxing. I mean, Air Force, of course, can always be troublesome, but to draw Air Force from the mountainside,
they got a bye right before Air Force as well.
Even better to practice for the option, right? And then you have Colorado State, who's definitely descended, and the other one that you mentioned was Utah State. That's the tough one, but they get that one at home. The crossover games aren't that difficult, and for that reason, if they could sneak either the USC or Minnesota game, they're probably a definite over 8-win team. But I agree with your major point there was about the quarterback, and I couldn't agree more, Drew, just based on the fact that the kid only threw 3 interceptions last year, McMarion. That's almost impossible to repeat. A better than 8-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio with a new quarterback here, it's going to be difficult to follow those types of numbers.
Yeah, in their first game, week 1, Fresno State, USC, it's the get-back game, Robbie, the degenerate special, so to speak. We got Fresno State at USC minus 13.5 now, seeing pretty much across the board they've taken some money, and it's the 10:30 Eastern kickoff, week 1 on ESPN. So definitely be watching that. That will be a fun one. Not sure, definitely not involved as of right now. You have any opinion, week 1, 13.5 USC?
Yeah, it sounds a little high to me, Drew, considering the drastic change that USC is making in offensive philosophy as well. First game out, not to say that they don't have the talent to run an air raid offense, but Graham Harrell was about the third choice there for offensive coordinator. They were going to run air raid come heck or high water. We'll just see how effective it is against what's a really good defensive team first game out of the chute.
Robbie, we got the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors up next. Nick Rolovich's 4th year here. I believe he was the quarterback, or did play at Hawaii. I could be mistaken on that. And last year, came out of the gates, man. They were good. Beating Colorado State, kind of surprising people. Catching double digits in that game. Also catching double digits against Navy. Won that game. So right out of the gate, they played very well. They did have a tough patch in the middle of the season. Ended up making a bowl game, though, the Hawaii Bowl at home to Louisiana Tech. I believe they lost that bowl game. Other than that, 3 Pac-12 teams, to start off their schedule. 3 in a row: Arizona, Oregon State, and at Washington. They're underdogs in the Arizona game. That is the nightcap of week 0 right after Florida Miami. So they're going to be right in the starlight again here, Robbie, with a lot of eyeballs on them. The program seems to be heading in the right direction. Recruiting with Hawaii is always interesting. Are they able to pull the recruits from California, from the West Coast? And high school football in Hawaii is very good. A lot of people don't realize that, so they do have some homegrown talent that the Pac-12 and others haven't picked off if they're able to keep them there. Overall, Robbie, what is your outlook here for the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors?
Yeah, it's probably the best situation head coach Rolovich has been in since he got back to Hawaii. Remember, he came in and had to really do some mending to this program, and he went back to the grassroots, put the run and shoot back in and tried to recreate the atmosphere that was present when he did play there. You're correct about that. He was a quarterback for this team. It had gotten away from Hawaii a little bit, the traditional philosophies of this team offensively and defensively. But now they're back, a ton of returning talent. And I think the surprise, Drew, as we get closer to the start of the season and kind of break out of what we read about teams in spring camp and now what we read about them in fall camp, the surprise here for Hawaii is the defensive side of the football. Apparently the defense, and once again, I'll go back to something that I said just a few minutes ago. We get it, that when you practice against your own team for so many days in a row, 15 spring practices and then 15 fall practices, and the playbook inside out, it can be a little bit easier for the defense to make plays against an offense where they know what's coming. However, Hawaii wasn't able to make plays against anything for the last couple of years, and the defense seems to have taken a step up. The offense is going to be very, very good. They had injuries last year. Remember, Cole McDonald got off to a great start, got hurt. They went through 3 quarterbacks, including their top freshman, and never really got the rhythm back. John Ursua, one of their wide receivers, you saw him. You talk about guys that are in the NFL. You saw him last night making plays for the Seattle Seahawks. So the receiving core minus Ursua is really intact. Those kids, Cedric Bird, JoJo Ward and company, very, very good. One key guy to keep an eye on for this team would be Melky Stovall, who, Drew, just thinking back, and I know you watch a lot of college football as well, this kid was a highly touted freshman for Sonny Dykes at Cal. He was starting at Cal and then transferred out of that program, sat out a year with Hawaii, brings more speed, more game-breaking ability to this offense. So the offensive line is nice. The running game is in good shape. He's got this offense running on all cylinders right now. When I saw through a couple of articles that the defense was picking it up, it makes me upgrade Hawaii a little bit here. They're getting an awful lot of points in week 1 if we just turn to individual game action, or week 0 as it's referred to. Sitting at home getting 11 points from Arizona, to me, seems like quite a bit. Hawaii should be able to go toe-to-toe with them. Hawaii might be able to go toe-to-toe with a lot of people this year. That Washington game obviously is going to be tough. They're not ducking anybody, as evidenced by 3 Pac-12 teams right off the bat. But when they get into conference, boy, I think these teams are going to have their hands full with the Hawaii offense, and we'll see if the defense upgrades the way we're reading right now. Then Hawaii could be a little bit of a sleeper inside that division. And certainly when it comes to covering point spreads, I think maybe we'll be able to look at Hawaii until the rest of the world catches on.
And Robbie, I'm looking here at their season win total of 5.5. I like it towards the over, and it's one that I haven't bet. To tell you the truth, I haven't really dug deep into it, but I'll tell you why. One, Hawaii, you got to remember, they have their 13-game schedule. There's a college football rule where if you play, I believe it's an out-of-conference game in Hawaii and Hawaii qualifies, then you get an extra game because they were having trouble getting people to, make the trip out there just because it costs more money to bring, 80 guys on a college football team out to Hawaii. And when you go down their schedule, they got the 3 Pac-12 teams, but one of them's Oregon State. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say they'll probably be favored in that game, right, Robbie?
They should be, and they get them at home.
Yeah, at home. I mean, Washington and Arizona are going to be up against it, so the 1 and 2 out the gate, and then they got a FCS Central Arkansas. Actually, Central Arkansas is pretty good, but still, they'll be favored in that at home. So 2 and 2 going into Mountain West play, and you got the Boise's, you got San Diego State, Army to end it. That's going to be a tough one, especially Army's off of a bye before it. But you also got the UNLVs of the world. And
New
actually,
Mexico?
I was hoping to see a little bit more of San Jose State. They do have New Mexico, which should be a win for them. But still, I still think that they can find some of these wins. Against Air Force, I think that's a toss-up game. And I actually missed it going through. They do have San Jose State. I like this 5.5 over. You have any feel on it?
Yeah, you're talking about a 6-7 team, right? With 13 games. I mean, 6-7 doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility whatsoever. In fact, just based off of what I said myself here in analyzing this team, I think they have a chance to beat Arizona week 1. They're getting 11 points. They wouldn't shock anybody if Hawaii came up and, in a high-scoring game beat Arizona, and that would be one already that you probably weren't if you just go down on paper, you probably weren't expecting. So, yeah, 5.5 to me seems a little bit low. Like I say, Nick Rolovich, there's a lot of teams. If we just separate out Fresno State and San Diego State, where Rocky Long and Jeff Tedford, their ways are set at those schools. The other 4 schools are all in situations where the head coach is either 3rd year, 4th year. I think Sanchez at UNLV is 5th year, but you get the idea. These programs are all to the point where it should be a breakout year for them. Figuring out which 1 or 2 may break out. I don't know that all 4 can break out this year, but Hawaii, to me, Drew, has a leg up on the others. The home field's more difficult, obviously, than a lot of the others. So over 5.5, I could agree with that for sure.
And guys, we're moving down the Mountain West Division here on the podcast in the ABC order. Don't want to offend anybody, any Mountain West fans on who we're talking about first or last. And guys, you can use the coupon code VENO99. That's VENO 99 at checkout to get Rob Veno's 30-day all access for just $99. It's $275 right now, discounted. We just discounted it on the site, so you get to save $176 with that coupon code. Great deal there for his 30-day all access pass. That includes baseball, that includes college football, that includes NFL for the next 30 days for just $99 using Veno 99 at checkout. We got next team up, the Nevada Wolfpack in ABC order again. 8-5 last year, Robbie. 7-6 ATS. 5-8 trending towards the under. Jay Norvell's 3rd year here. I believe he came from Arizona State as the offensive coordinator. I think they have to replace their quarterback as well. They got Purdue week 1 on that Friday and then a trip at Oregon. So tough slate here out the gate for Nevada. Robbie, what are you thinking for the Wolfpack in 2019?
Yeah, and here's another one, another team in that particular situation that we just talked about. Jay Norvell, 3rd year in this system. He had to undo a lot of damage done by Brian Polian when he took over this job. I mean, Brian Polian basically took everything that Chris Ault had built up as Nevada's football identity and just tore it down in 3 quick years. Been rebuilt, though. Norvell has Nevada back to more of a high-flying team. I think they got hurt quite a bit with the injury to their quarterback, Christian Solano, here to start summer practice. It looked like he was going to be the starter without Solano. Now, for those of us, or for those of you who are like me that enjoy Last Chance U, here's our chance to watch Independence Community College in Kansas, their quarterback, Malik Henry, in action. It looks like he'll be the starter for Nevada. I guess you could say we've got tape on him, Drew, right? Because we've got to see him on Last Chance U. But Malik Henry, a kid who actually was recruited to Florida State to start with and just has not done anything in the 4 years since. To me, it's a stretch at quarterback, having him as your starter here. I like this defense. I think Norvell has definitely had the defense grow quicker than the offense. Some of the offensive stuff due to quarterback injury and backup quarterbacks having to play. But Jeff Castile, a guy who for years followed Rich Rodriguez around running his 3-3-5 stack, much like Rocky Long, one of the more unique defenses for a long, long time in college football. You see more of it now. But Castillo, a 3-3-5 proponent, has gotten Nevada to the point where they're putting guys in the pros on the defensive side of the football. And I think that, defensively out of these lower or second-tier teams in the Mountain West, maybe they're a little further ahead of the curve defensively than the others are. We'll see where the offense goes, though. Drew, they've got a stud running back in Tawa, who had a great season last year, and they can lean on the run a little bit. But Norvell's calling card is he wants to throw the football around, and they will throw it around this year. I have my doubts whether or not Malik Henry is the guy you want throwing it around. So I think the injury for me, Christian Solano's going to miss, from what I've read, about the first 4 games of the season, which puts Nevada in a little bit of trouble in my mind against Purdue, if they weren't already, against Oregon, if they weren't already, Weber State, and then Texas El Paso are the next 2 they can probably get by before they open up conference play with Hawaii. And even if Solano's back for the Hawaii game, it would be his first game back off of a hand injury. Don't know that he'd be the starter there. It could be difficult out of the chute for Nevada. I think personnel-wise, Drew, to sum it up real quick, they're an improved team. I don't see anything that would suggest that they're not better personnel-wise than they were last year. But one of the biggest hits that you can take is to your starting quarterback, and that's what's happened here. And I just don't know. Malik Henry might surprise me, but he'll have to prove it to me. And it could be one of those situations, Drew, where if he goes out as the starter and performs poorly against Purdue, and then Oregon gets the best of him as well, you could lose that kid for the entire season mentally. We've seen that he's a little bit fragile psychologically. If there's one thing we learned from that Last Chance U show, that's it. He's a little bit fragile psychologically, and if you come out first 2 games and you don't have success, that could be troublesome for Nevada. So I don't necessarily like them out of the chute. I'd rather fade this team. It's a shame because I do think overall personnel they're better, but I just don't see it happening with this quarterback.
Robbie, we got a couple more teams here, and we're talking San Diego State Aztecs up next. And what Rocky Long has been able to do in San Diego has been pretty amazing here as one of the class programs of the Mountain West Conference. Ryan Agnew, I believe, returning as the quarterback here. San Diego State, again in order of alphabetical order, 7-6 last year, 4-4 in conference, just 3-10 against the spread. So losing money overall last year for their bettors, and 4-9. Strong trender towards the under. And we know the Aztecs, good defense, on offense, do struggle at times to throw the ball. Really, I would say talent at the quarterback position has probably been their Achilles heel here, but they can really run it, and a lot of times they don't need to throw it that much. But I guess last year it didn't work really to their advantage with 6 losses, more so than I can remember in recent years. They had a double-digit streak of 3 years running. 2015, 2016, and 2017 of wins, 11 wins, 10 wins, and 10 wins. So pretty strong performances here for San Diego State in the past. Last year, not as much. You think they can kind of bounce back to being the premium program in the Mountain West?
Yeah, well, 2-10 as a home favorite the last 2 years, Drew. And I know you and I, when we did the Every Game on the Board podcast last year, a lot of weeks we had the San Diego State game, and a lot of weeks we had San Diego State at home where they were double-digit favorites. And I can remember the conversations always being the same. You just can't lay heavy prices with a team that you can't trust to get to 20 points. Now, quarterback was hurt last year for sure. They had a lot, like a lot of teams, they had to make do with some tough injuries, and Christian Chapman was a guy who came back toward the end of the season and played a little bit, but in a favorites role, they've been miserable, especially as a home favorite, like I say, 2-10 over the course of the last 2 years. The big news, of course, the headline that catches everybody's eye back in the spring was San Diego State going to the spread offense. And you think, holy, Rocky Long, he's one of these prehistoric dinosaurs. There's a few left in the country that get under center and want to run the ball down your throat. But Rocky Long had some good reasons for switching to a shotgun spread formation this year, Drew. And he basically said he's done it for 2 reasons. Not because he's going to change his philosophy. So don't think because Rocky Long, I know you get a little excited when you hear San Diego State's going to a spread, but it's not to throw the football. It's basically because, in his words, high school quarterbacks all operate out of the shotgun nowadays, and he's got, as he brings new quarterbacks in, he's got to make them more comfortable. They're not comfortable under center anymore, so they've gone to a shotgun alignment. The spread, he said, is to take pressure off of his offensive line, and anybody who's ever watched a San Diego State game, you know it. Teams come with 8 guys. They crowd the line of scrimmage. They know San Diego State's going to run, and when they're in those tight formations, he said it just makes it way too hard on our offensive line. So we're going to spread it out. It'll spread the defense out. It'll eliminate a lot of those crowded 8-man fronts from the defense because they'll have to go with our guys that are spread wide. He said philosophy won't change. Still going to run it. They might be able to run it now with wider gaps because they've spread things out. And, of course, Agnew, the quarterback, was real happy because he comes from Southlake, Texas, where they operated out of a spread shotgun. He's real happy with the new playbook. So, again, the play calling percentages probably won't change, but San Diego State's success on offense may change a little bit because they'll have more openings because they're spreading things out a little bit. Quarterback will have a little bit more time out of the shotgun to see things develop in front of him. Running backs might have bigger holes. Defense is never something we have to worry about with this team. They return a lot of experience here, Drew. This is a team that, as you mentioned, had a down year last year, brings back an experienced bunch, really healthy as we head into the fall. So I think that they may be somewhat overlooked here as we start the season, much like Fresno State might be a little bit overlooked. The kingpins of this division are probably not darlings to the betting public the way they have been in the past. Certainly 2-10 as a home favorite wouldn't make San Diego State anybody's darling. But I could see an instance here where maybe this team can put up, a touchdown to 10 points more per game just because they're operating out of an alignment that would lend itself to better offensive play.
Rob, good breakdown. Yeah, you're right offensively that, finding a little change here could be a way to make money with the Aztecs. We got moving down the line here. We got San Jose State up next, the Spartans in San Jose, California. 1-11 last year, Robbie. 1-7 in conference. One of the worst programs in all of the country, really. 7-5 ATS, 6-6 over under. And if you're picking out good things about San Jose State, Brent Brennan in his third year here, one, it's the head coach in his third year. Sometimes that can be a positive. And two, they didn't quit on the season last year. Obviously 1-11, losing all their games up until the UNLV game about week 7 or 8, and they won 50-37. They were actually favored in that game. I remember that. And then losing the last 4 games against Wyoming, Utah State, Nevada, and Fresno State. Those are some heavy hitters in the Mountain West, and they performed pretty well, not quitting on the season, so that's usually a positive if you're looking for reasons to bet them. Not saying, out of the gate I'm looking to bet San Jose State. They do start off with Northern Colorado on that Thursday opener. Always interesting to see FBS versus FCS before facing Tulsa, a bye week at Arkansas, and then starting their Mountain West games at Air Force. So it's going to be likely another tough season here for San Jose State, but really only one way to go but up. How far up do you think they can go, Robbie?
Well, if you listen to the head coach, Brent Brennan, and again, it was a teardown project, right? We've just discussed Hawaii, where Nick Rolovich had to come in and tear it down and rebuild. We're going to get to UNLV, where Tony Sanchez had to come in and tear it down and rebuild. Talked about Nevada, where Norvell had to come in and clean up the mess left by Polian, tear it down, rebuild. Brent Brennan, same thing. And reading his quotes, Drew, here in August, the head coach, and I don't see enough press conferences featuring Brent Brennan to know whether or not he's a coach speak guy or not. But I'm going to take him at his word here because he seems really, really excited just about the look of his football team. Said that they put in more work this offseason in the weight room, the grassroots type stuff that you have to do in order to build your program up. He said his football team looks entirely different. Physically, they are as athletic as they've been, but they're stronger. And the durability should be better on this team. So he likes what he sees, and he loves the hard work. You mentioned earlier that San Jose State didn't quit in games, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with what he's saying about how hard this team worked because they want to be better. It's his third year. A lot of these guys have been with him since the first year, including quarterback Josh Love, who I have to tell you I really like. And watching him and watching the amount of hits, I respect any quarterback that takes a huge number of hits and continues to get up and keep firing the football. This is an offense that wants to throw downfield. They had success last year scoring points on a lot of occasions, but the defense just couldn't hold up. I mean, they gave up 804 yards to Utah State. Utah State was one of the more prolific offenses in the country, but 804 yards is a lot of yards to give up in a game. They gave up almost 500 per. That number will come down. I don't think these point spreads, underdog prices where San Jose State is concerned are going anywhere, Drew. I think you're going to get as much in the point spread with San Jose State as you got last year. Nobody's going to run to bet these guys. And in the business that we're in, a lot of times the first places that we dig is for these ugly teams that nobody wants to bet. And this is certainly one of the ugly ones, but they've got the ability to score. They've got a ton of players back. The coach is telling us that the team has worked excessively hard throughout the offseason, the spring, and now into the summer. It's all coming together for them. It's his third year. Like I say, a lot of the same players, third year in the system. I'm going to give them a look. We'll see. Obviously, it's a team that would be a hair bit depth shy. San Jose State, not necessarily putting quality depth in the second and third teams. But as far as starting units are concerned, and if they can stay fairly healthy, which would be, the first couple of games, hopefully, maybe we get some value with this team. I think it could be a little bit of a sleeper even when we get into conference play. We'll see how it goes, but I like what the coach has said. Like I said, I don't see enough of him to know if he's, blowing smoke or not, but I just don't feel like what I read was a coach blowing smoke. It seemed like a coach who's really, truly excited about marching this team that was 1-11 last year out onto the field to see how much they've improved this season. So I got a little check mark next to San Jose State. I think I'll take a couple flyers on them, whether it be with a total or whether it be plus points.
All right, Robbie, good stuff. And guys, we're talking with Rob Veno on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports. Check out his full season college football, NFL, all on sportsmemo.com. You can get a 3-day, 7-day, 30-day. And if you do choose to get 30-day all access, we can take $179 off the retail price, and you can get it for just $99. You'll get all of his plays, 5% top rated plays, 4%, 3%, every sport he releases for just $99 using the coupon code VENO99 at checkout. 30-day all access for just $99 with the coupon code VENO99. That's VENO99. We got the UNLV Rebels rounding it out here, Robbie. We got Tony Sanchez in his 5th year here. We remember, 5 years ago now, he was hired up from being the high school coach at Bishop Gorman, I believe, and now seeing here at UNLV, just 4-8 last year. You got to think that seat's probably starting to heat up. You got to start making bowl games here when you start talking your 5th year in the program. But I'm not too sure on that. We got 4-8 last year, Robbie. 2-6 in conference, 6-6 against the number, over under 7-5, so pretty much straight across the board here. Armani Rogers did look good, showed flashes of being pretty good last year. However, they just couldn't get it rolling for whatever reason. Starting off with Southern Utah week 1. What are you thinking for the running Rebels in 2019, Robbie?
Yeah, he's the key, right? Armani Rogers, Drew. You don't want him to get hurt. However, unlike a couple of other teams in that 4-team cluster that we've talked about here in this division, if Armani Rogers gets hurt, Max Gilliam comes in, and Max Gilliam played a lot of football last year. So UNLV might have the best quarterback depth of these teams, these second-tier teams that we're talking about. I might put Hawaii right there with them, but certainly if San Jose State loses Love, they're in deep trouble. And I've already stated that I think with Malik Henry, Nevada's probably in trouble. So this is a good quarterback situation. Skill positions are really good here, especially at the wide receiver spot. If they can keep Rodgers healthy, boy, that dual threat ability that he has, Drew, this offense could be very, very explosive. Good offensive line back. This is probably the deepest roster talent-wise that Tony Sanchez has had. Again, it should be fifth season, right? Defensively, they got to make improvements, just like all these teams. Hawaii, San Jose State, UNLV, if they're going to make the next step, it's got to be on the defensive side of the football. This team last year gives up 451 yards per game. It's just too much for them to allow to be able to get straight up wins. Now, the 6-6 spread record, which obviously we're more interested in, has been consistent over the course of the last 3 years. UNLV hasn't had a roster this talented, this deep and talented, yet they've been able to be 500 against the spread. So to crack that and become a profitable team this year certainly isn't out of the question. A lot of these games where these teams go head-to-head, UNLV, Hawaii, the San Jose State and Nevada, will decide a lot of things, and UNLV plays those three teams the very last 3 games of the season. Their schedule, unlike some of the others that we've gone over so far, not that difficult right off the bat. They're going to play Southern Utah, an FCS team. They're going to play Arkansas State at home, however. So Arkansas State's certainly one of the top Sun Belt teams, but they'll come to Las Vegas. Then they have to go to Northwestern, which is difficult. Then they get into their own Mountain West season. Across division, they draw Wyoming and Boise State, which are difficult games. Going to have to play SEC Vanderbilt as well. So again, straight up wins might be tough to come by, but point spread wins, like a couple of these other teams we've talked about, Drew, they may be there for UNLV. A lot depends on the health of Rodgers. I think this is a team in the front 7 on that side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball, that could be a little bit better. And if they could just stop the run and not get run over, perhaps that'll provide real good results here. Coaching staff is the same. There's a lot of stability in these teams. And like I said before, we'll see which, I think out of the 4, 2 will probably have real good seasons. You can't expect all 4 to have great seasons. But if Tony Sanchez doesn't, Drew, he's going to be gone. I think more than the other coaches that we've talked about here, Rolovich, Norvell, and San Jose State's head coach Brennan. I think this is the guy, as you said, he's on the hottest seat. They have the biggest sense of urgency. We'll see how it goes here, but I think that UNLV certainly, you're not going to get any great shakes with them against Southern Utah, but maybe that home game against Arkansas State presents a situation where you could bet them. Armani Rodgers is a real key to this team, though. And like I say, if he goes down, Gilliam can play, so you just don't write them off if Rodgers were to get hurt.
Yeah, and I remember that. When Armani Rodgers went out, it was like Fade City on UNLV. It was so much of the offense. And at first it was, but then this kid Max Gilliam, I remember watching him because I for whatever reason they were on my screens a lot last year, and he got a lot better with playing time. So I'm with you, Robbie. Even if Armani Rodgers goes down, heck, Max Gilliam was the better downfield passer in my opinion. So right. It might even open up as far as the offense goes if he gets in there. Interesting scenario there betting UNLV this year, and if Tony Sanchez can hold on to his job in Las Vegas, and they're still playing in the same stadium, right, Rob? And then next year they'll move in with the Raiders.
They will.
So that could be good for them in an NFL stadium there in Las Vegas. Robbie, anything else you want to throw out on the pod before we shut this down for the week?
No, I don't know if we're hiding our excitement levels good enough, Drew. 2 weeks from college football. Holy cow, I can hardly sit in the office chair as I talk to you here. I can't wait to get it back. Got a little bit of preseason action going on right now, so we have some form of football. But boy, oh boy, college football in a couple of weeks will be nice. For those listening to the podcast, once again, the 30-day all-access, go ahead and take advantage. That's a great price. We expect to get out of the chutes quick here in college football. Tonight, and very quickly, 5% play, 5% blue chip going in Major League Baseball. So you can find that at sportsmemo.com as well.
Yeah, guys, Robbie Veno talking about college football there. 5% blue chip totals, 11-3 last year. Yeah, that's over 78%. Also is 5% blue chips. The top rated plays that he usually releases, about one a week. 134 and 84, that's 62% plus 83% return on investment. So absolutely killing it with the top plays. You'll get all of his top plays in every sport, and that will include the start of college football in his 30-day all access, and you can get it for just $99 using the coupon code VENO99, VENO 99. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Best of luck with your bets. We'll talk on Monday with Teddy, talking some football opening line report. Have a fun, safe weekend.